as you go through these exercises today, if any feelings of pushback come up, I encourage you to check in with yourself about them and think about, is this something that just doesn't resonate with me? Maybe breathing meditations don't work for you. Maybe nutrition isn't the best place for you to start. Then that's okay. You can skip any section or start in any section that you like. But I also encourage you to ask yourself if those feelings are coming from a place of fear. Anxiety is a type of fear, and sometimes it's a fear of change. And anxiety can be part of a process that we get ourselves stuck in where we're feeling anxious because our bodies and our minds are trying to tell us to change something. And we're pushing against that because we are afraid of what we will look like, what our lives will look like if we make that shift. So I encourage you to reflect on that and think about, am I pushing back on this because I'm afraid of what making this change will look like and how I will feel about myself and about my life if I make this change? Or is it really not resonating with me? And is it actually a positive choice for me to skip this exercise at this moment? Part of that can be a fear that even if we do everything right, everything that we know that we're supposed to do to work on our anxiety, that still nothing will change. And that can be a big source of fear that no matter what you do, you're always going to feel anxious. And I actually find it helpful for myself to reassure myself that yes, I will always feel anxiety throughout my life, not every day, not every moment, but it will always come up. It's never going to not be a part of my life. And I actually find that reassuring because it's a normal, natural part of human experience to feel anxious. Sometimes anxiety is the right feeling to feel. Sometimes it makes sense to be very anxious. There's a lot going on right now in the world. It makes a lot of sense for us to be feeling anxious right now. It's okay to feel anxious right now, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to let it take over my life. So if I do a breathing exercise one day and it doesn't work and I don't feel less anxious, I don't see that as a sign of failure because all of these things that we're learning are a process. It's part of a learning process of figuring out what's going to work for you, what can you actually stick with day after day. And when you do skip a day, that's also not the end of this. So if you do these exercises today and tomorrow you don't, please don't give up on them. It takes time to get into the habit of these things, and you have to keep doing them repetitively before they start to have a significant impact. So you could do a breathing exercise today and feel better for 2 minutes, or you can do it every day and feel better most of the time. That's how most of these things work, is the more often you do it, the longer lasting impact it's going to have. But you're always going to have an off day. You're always going to have a time where it just doesn't work for you, or you just aren't feeling up to it that day. All of that is okay. So take this process slowly and don't be too hard on yourself when you're not living up to the guidelines that you've set for yourself. So when you feel anxiety begin to come up, the first thing I encourage you to do is check in with yourself and ask yourself, what is my anxiety trying to tell me right now? And if you don't know, that's okay. Just stop and take a breath, take a moment, feel into your body. Am I feeling those palpitations? Is my stomach hurting? Where in my body is this anxiety affecting me? And just notice those bodily sensations for a moment. And see if, as you focus on them and you stop and breathe, maybe they shift. Maybe it shifts, maybe it doesn't. Either way, it's okay. Just take that moment to listen to your body for a second and then ask yourself again, what is my anxiety trying to tell me right now? And see if you can hear that message from yourself. And if you can't, then that's okay too. Then I encourage you to ask yourself, what feelings am I hiding from myself? And we're asking ourselves all of these questions because we know deep down what we're feeling and what we need, our bodies are trying to tell us this, but we've hidden it from ourselves. So if we can think about this in different ways, especially for those of us that aren't used to getting in touch with our emotions, we can actually access some really deep things. So ask yourself, what is your anxiety trying to tell you right now? What feelings are you hiding from yourself? What's really going on? And see if you can find out what is actually triggering and causing these feelings of anxiety. And then can you fix it? Because there's something simple that you can do right now to fix it. Even if you're anxious in a larger sense about an issue that's outside of you and you have no control over, maybe in this moment you can provide a little anxiety relief by doing a breathing exercise or getting a snack or drinking some water, getting up and stretching. What can you do right now to fix it even a little bit? And if you don't have an answer for that, that's okay too. Try any of the exercises that are in this class and see if any of them work for you in the moment. You might not know what's going to fix it until you've tried a few things and see what works for you. So anytime you have a feeling of anxiety coming up, just stop, take a breath, check in with yourself, feel where in your body you're feeling those anxious feelings, and then ask yourself, what is my anxiety trying to tell me right now? What am I hiding from myself? And then ask, do I really want to stay anxious right now? And you might actually be surprised that part of you might be saying yes. Sometimes when I'm feeling anxious, it feels good just to stay stuck in that feeling and say, yeah, I'm just going to stay anxious and I'm going to lie in bed and I'm going to watch TV, or I'm going to do nothing today and be super unproductive. Sometimes that feels good. And occasionally that's okay to have a little doing nothing vacation. But if that is your continual response to anxiety, you're only going to make things worse over time. So that's that negative versus positive anxiety. So listen to that answer. If you find yourself saying, yes, I want to stay anxious right now, think about why. Is it that fear of change that if you try to get out of this, it's not going to work anyway, so why would you try? Is it the fear of maybe if you make this really dramatic change for yourself, then you won't even recognize who you are afterwards? All of those things can bring up fear that can prevent us from actually wanting to make those changes. And if you're having those feelings and not addressing them, you're going to feel like you are doing all of the things and nothing is happening. Okay, so if you're doing all of this, all of these exercises that we're talking about and nothing's happening, come back to this question of, do I actually want to change? Do I actually want to stop feeling anxious? Or is there a part of me that wants to feel anxious and wants to be stuck in this right now because it's comfortable? And that could be okay for you right now. Maybe it's not the right time to be making big changes. Maybe there's enough instability and things that you don't feel like you have control over. So this is the thing that you want to control and you feel like you can control it best by saying how things are. That's okay, right? That is a choice that you can make. So checking in with yourself about that answer. And then if you notice yourself saying, yes, I want to change this, I don't want to feel anxious anymore, then use that as your motivation. Remind yourself of that when these feelings come up. I don't want to feel this way, so what can I do to fix it? Sometimes it even helps to feel grateful to the anxiety and even express that gratitude and say, thank you, anxiety, for reminding me to connect with myself. Thank you, anxiety, for reminding me that I need to take breaks. You can use this as an opportunity to thank yourself, thank your body for giving you these messages that allow you to make positive changes. The best antidote to anxiety is joy. So if you can express gratitude for the anxiety itself, that's a form of joy. If you can find something that replaces your usual anxiety behaviors with something that is joyful to you, like instead of lying on the couch, you're going to go for a walk and listen to the birds. If that brings you joy, then that's a great new pattern to get into. So anything that you can do to find joy is going to be the best antidote to anxiety. So what is your anxiety telling you? If it's telling you that you are super overwhelmed right now, then what can you do to take things off of your plate? Write those things down. Try to make those changes. If it's telling you that you are super overwhelmed right now about a project that you are incredibly passionate about and there's nothing you can do to take things off of your plate, but you know that the end result is worth it and you'll get through it soon, then that's a time that anxiety can actually be useful as a motivator and keeping you on task about something that is really important to you. So sometimes anxiety is useful and you don't need it to go away as long as it's actually motivating you forward instead of getting you stuck. And then how can you replace some of those anxious feelings with joy? What can you do right now that would make you feel happy? Even if it's just something simple like looking out the window, what can you do right now that's easy that will make you feel just a little bit happier? Looking at a dog, for example. I have another helper here now. So one of the things that can be really helpful for getting us out of these anxiety loops is positive self-messaging. And this is something that if you've never tried it before, it can feel really weird and kind of pointless the first couple times that you do it. But the more you do it, the better it will feel and the more helpful it'll feel and the more you will believe yourself. So think about something that you tell yourself all the time about how bad you are at something, or how you're lazy or you don't get things done, whatever those negative self-messages are that you tell yourself, write them down and then put them in a positive light. So imagine how you want to be. If you tell yourself that you're lazy, maybe it's actually that you're exhausted. You just worked really hard on something and now you just need some downtime. So instead of telling yourself how lazy you are, you can change that into a positive self-message and say, I worked really hard and I deserve a break. So taking something that you tell yourself all the time, maybe even without thinking about it, and flipping it to a positive message. And then start saying those things to yourself. Write them down and say them to yourself every morning as you're brushing your teeth, even multiple times throughout the day. And it's gonna feel silly and fake. And then as you do it more and more, you're gonna start believing yourself. You're going to be telling yourself how great you are and you're going to believe it. And that is a great way to find joy and to counteract anxiety. So you can tell yourself things that you are already proud of, things that you already like about yourself, or you can tell yourself things that you want to be true. So imagining how you want to be and creating that in the present moment. So if you want to be extremely focused and motivated, tell yourself every morning, I am extremely focused and motivated, until you start to believe it, and then it will start to be true. I think people get annoyed with positive self-messaging like this because it doesn't apply to everything. You can't just say, I want to be rich and then become rich. That's not how these things work. But when it's a personal feeling about yourself, you're the one that's creating that pattern and you're the one that can change it. So if you're giving yourself a different message about who you want to be, you can actually make that shift because that's an internal process that you are in charge of. So that's where these positive messages really work and are really powerful. So again, I encourage yourself when these anxious feelings come up, check in with yourself. What is my body trying to tell me? What am I hiding from myself? What's the message here? What's really going on? And then ask, do I want to change this? Do I want to keep feeling this way? Or do I want to do something else? And what can I do? Is this an easy fix? Is there something that I can do right now to make myself feel better? And practicing your positive self-messaging every day if you can to get yourself out of these loops of ways that you're thinking about yourself that are getting you stuck in being an anxious person. Because you are not an anxious person. Anxiety is a feeling that everyone has. It's a passing feeling. It's not your identity. It's not something that needs to happen all the time. Okay, so shifting our focus from this being who we are to being a feeling that we have among many other feelings.